Okay, I guess we can go ahead and begin. My name is Marina from Sigma Learning Center, and while I see a lot of families that are that I've known for several years, I do see some newcomers. So I'm just going to very briefly introduce who we are and why we're doing this, or why we're having this Zoom call. Now, Sigma Learning Center was started about 6 years ago. I noticed while teaching and homeschooling my own children that a certain method of teaching provides long-term excellence. So, for example, I noticed that starting with abstract concepts and focusing on that and then going to particulars help build strong foundations and gives a really physical understanding of mathematics. I found that with my children and the children that I tutor, that this method of teaching is very good. Now, it is long-term benefits, but it is effective. And so we started Sigma Learning Center because all of us love to teach. And especially when the kids get great results, we're very happy. So why is Sigma Learning Center hosting this? Well, with the whole pandemic crisis, we've been noticing that a lot of our kids are getting really frustrated. Some of them are kind of losing that enthusiasm that had been built throughout the years for their learning, and it might just be the whole staying at home thing. But we wanted to address this, to discuss with our parents in an open discussion what we can do to help them. How will this pandemic situation affect college admissions in the future, academic rigor, and in general, the overall academic excellence and expectations that colleges may have from our children. So we've invited a wonderful college counselor. Her name is Mrs.Bina Varkey, and she is from New Jersey, but she does do college admissions and counsels on a national level. So she's does do for state schools, for out-of-state schools and things like that. She was kind enough to present and take any questions that we have at the end. So, Bina, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Perfect. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So, good evening. Hello for everyone in Texas. So I'm here, like Marina said, in New Jersey. I'm going to share my screen with you so you can kind of see, start off with our PowerPoint. So a lot of what I do, and I have been doing for about 17 years in education, is being a school counselor at high school level. I've worked at urban schools, at rural schools. Right now, I've been working in the same school for about 13 years. I have a lot of experience in different things in different areas. It's a little bit about my background. My master's in EDS was in marriage and family therapy. I did my postmaster's in school counseling. Just a little bit my certifications and my licensing. I'm also a licensed professional counselor, so I do see clients on the outside, primarily for adolescents age, families and couples as well. In the school setting, my primary role is, of course, as a school counselor. I see all grade levels. I do a lot of college career counseling. I'm also the National Honor Society advisor, as well as the National Technical Honor Society advisor. And this year, I was on the 2020 Reopening Planning Committee with, I'm sure, a lot of other administrators and teachers just as frustrated with the situation that we're in right now. So moving on to a lot of the questions that Marina and I had talked about for the past couple of months, just in general, what we're facing, which is new for everyone. This is a pandemic that no one really has ever experienced in this time and age. I think the last time we've ever had this type of lack of education was since the 1900s. Spanish flu, they say. It was the last time we actually had this gap of time. So here we are during this pandemic, and everyone's questioning everything. We have, no school, online, delivering, streaming. What are we as educators are doing? What are parents seeing? What are students seeing? These are all questions that we're faced with asking. A lot of the questions is, how will school continue to work towards meeting the regular academic goals when education is delivered online? Will it be the same? Will the rigor of the normal academic year be the same? Now, if you've asked most people, they'll say yes, that yes, you can do blended and online learning presentation, the same rigor, and nothing should change. Grading scale should change, not stay the same. In-person learning should be the same as in online learning. However, the problem is we're combating so many different factors right now that to get to that high level of quality of instruction that you want to see, that you're seeing typically in school settings, you have to combat everything else before that. They're filling in really for a gap of instruction from the previous school year. So, where you would have gotten, that time period from April and May, the 2 full months of education, you're kind of, we were thrown together at that time period. So now you're refilling from that area. A lot of themes that I've seen across the country, questions that educators, administrators are doing is seeing that you might see that a lot of people are also having an issue with focusing on remedial instruction. So a lot of people are seeing that because they're lacking that time period, you might have a time where you would have had some remedial instruction probably in May and June, but in May and April, but you're lost that. In addition, some schools were not doing the summer STEM camps and the camps they normally do. There was a gap of time for them as well. Also, a lot of special education students, there's a focus on them as well. Focus on finding technology for students who don't have it. So these are what administrators are combating. These are what teachers are helping. For the normal basic necessities, hot meals, safe place. People have been maybe a bit displaced because of what's going on currently. And they're seeing that, but what's happening now is that there is such a gap of time that they have to spend on this, that the quality of instruction is sometimes losing a focus. So that's becoming maybe the 10th thing we're looking at. And what most people will tell you, the achievement gap will likely widen for everyone, with socioeconomic, racial, everything, where you'll see that gap getting wider and wider. You'll see teachers sometimes and often lowering expectations, even colleges. So often you'll find people saying, the expectations from administration is that everyone gets the instruction, but sometimes administration will tell the teachers, well, give them the benefit of the doubt. People are struggling, people have time. So maybe deadlines, which were very quick and immediate during the times of like the normal schedule, where it would be like 2 days for an essay or a test or a question, they might say, well, give it a week or 2 weeks. So what's happening in the student themselves is saying, well, I don't have to spend that much time on doing something. I might be a little bit lax or procrastinate a little bit more because, well, the teacher said I have 2 weeks to do it instead of 1 week or 2 days. But there is a belief, which is important to understand, that higher level quality of learning is still going to be happening for students they feel that are of a higher socioeconomic status. So people do believe that those of a higher socioeconomic status will be able to get that. They'll be able to fill in the gaps through, the formal schooling or the tutoring centers or, parental involvement, where others won't. So it's important to understand that people believe that you will get it already. So even though the students may tend to procrastinate more now, there is a belief that teachers are like, well, you're in a higher level class. So even if I don't give you everything you need for instruction, or maybe I only gloss over that topic, you'll get it because, you're doing tutoring on the side, or your parents are helping you, or you'll have that. So they won't focus on that as much. So it's important to understand there is still a belief that you will get it in the end, whatever stream you get it from, whether it be from school or those other areas. So knowing that as a student, as a parent, you should realize that. So what to do? A lot of parents are, I've been doing a lot of meetings in the summertime with my students, and they're feeling like students are so discouraged. They have no direction, no purpose. They were so disengaged. I read that Texas Education Agency did a poll with their students and their teachers, and they found about 11.2% of students were disengaged completely. And they said about 90% of students in the high school level were engaged, but the other 10% weren't. They became apathetic towards education, and you don't want to get to that point. So what I've been telling most parents is to, the things you normally do when the child was in elementary school, you read to them, things like that. Help them become that self-motivated learner. Don't let them go of that type of behavior, that type of plan, habit forming plan of being that self-motivated to always want to learn, because that's what's going to foster critical thinking, good problem solving skills. And I truly believe that this generation dealing with all of this is going to help them become what's needed in the future. But the only way to get there is to not have and let the problems that we are facing right now push you down to the point where you can't see farther than tomorrow or today. You need to see farther than that. And the only way to do that is as a parent to be able to focus on the future. If you relay that to the students in general, you'll find that more students will, it's going to be hard because a teenager, trying to tell them what to do or what to say is hard. And I know in my own setting, most parents come and tell me, can you talk to my child? Because that's how it's going to be, because they don't think that the student will hear them. Although I'll tell you, most of the time the students do hear some of what you say. It just doesn't relay or connect in some way. Someone else might need to be making that connection for them. But it's important to keep on saying it. That high expectations as a parent can help sometimes replace those expectations the teachers may have, or the other people may have had of them. So you want to continue having that expectation for them. So now that we're in like a whole new world, I know Marina and I have talked about just in general of what's seeing the future of college admission process. And I know a lot of your students are right now seeing, what am I going to do? You've been preparing for probably since freshman year or earlier to go to college, taking your SATs, your ACTs. But with this new world we're facing of cancel dates, online learning, changes in the AP test, cancel of extracurricular sports activities, your college application will look different than it has before. That doesn't mean that they're not going to look at every part. So that's the really important part. Just a few college admission changes, and it's fluid. Every day there's a change. More and more colleges will be test optional. And you can find that list. What I recommend is don't go to a third-party site, although you may find them on fairtest.org. But go to each individual school. They will tell you directly what their requirements have changed for testing. There's a big testing wave of SAT subject. So students going into medical school programs or going into programs like engineering, highly, critical programming, you're not going to require to take the SAT subject. So the question is, what are they going to review? Used to be SAT, ACTs, all those standardized testing will tell you what is the predictor of how well you'll do in college. So now they need to replace that with something completely different. What else can tell them how well you'll do in college? I give an example of MIT, and MIT being one very elite Ivy League school, of what their typical requirements are and how they have changed. But because of all these changes and because of all the pandemic, this is a couple of things I want you to focus on, and what I'm seeing and what colleges are telling us, that they're seeing such a backlash from students and parents asking for tuition reduction as classes are online. They're seeing their 2020 class admission that they've already accepted. A lot of them were accepted in December and January, diminish. People are rethinking those high costs of tuition because why? They can't go to campus. They're asking students to stay home and do online classes only. And, you know, for those students who are in engineering, medical, or programs like where they have to do labs, they can't do them. They're doing things virtually. So a lot of parents are saying, well, then I'm not going to go there. They're seeing them actually decide to go to local colleges. Why? To save money. To say that, you know, or because of what's happening, maybe the student has been displaced, or the parents have lost their job, or they need to help save money. Things like that have come into factor. This junior class has kind of gotten the short end of the stick, the rising seniors. You guys, when starting senior year, should have kind of gone to all those open houses and college visits, do the virtual, you know, a lot of the times those tours that you could have done sometimes may have been canceled or rescheduled. And now you're finding that a lot of students are not, hold on a second. Yep. A lot of students are not being able to do that. So what happens? There is some students being able to have to go to the school, go through the online, go to a virtual tour. Is that going to be the same of getting the feel for, you know, someone that's actually going into the school area? Sometimes no. You know, it's not going to give you that same feeling. However, I'll tell you one thing, they are bending over backwards. So you'll find counselors willing to give appointments. You'll find them willing to do pretty much anything and answer a lot of questions privately to you. So I really do recommend going on, asking them to see, you know, if you can get as much information as you can. Sometimes just asking them, listen, you know, how many applicants have you gotten for the engineering program? That's something I always like to ask, especially if you're going to apply to a program where there's a lot of students typically applying, and maybe you're right on the fence and you're not sure if you can get into this, you know, this particular school. I would say ask those questions now. Definitely apply to schools that you are thinking is your reach school. With all of these changes, you will see acceptance rates vary a little bit more than normal. So it's important to don't let anything be out of your reach. Make sure you actually apply to those schools, and don't let time get away from you. You know, a lot of the time students might think, I'll wait till later. So just a couple of things I discussed before about all these changes, what you as a student and a parent should be doing now. So one, investigating your top choice colleges. Make sure you look at each individual school. Inquire about how they view AP and IB scores. So advanced placement this past year, some schools were doing them virtually, not in the classroom. Because of that, they did like a virtual synopsis, different than the normal testing. IB scores were canceled a lot. So because they were canceled, the end of year results, they didn't have that. They kind of did a end of year average from all your grades. So that was also different. So maybe the top schools are looking at them a little differently. And don't wait to make a decision to see if everything gets a little better. Start thinking about that process now. Collect, you know, if you have a group of 5 schools you're applying to, maybe widen it a little bit more, add a couple of more that you wouldn't normally think you would want to go in, or you wouldn't get into. Try doing that process now. Asking the questions at the schools that you are wanting to go into, ask them now. Every school is going to tell you something different right now, because they are dealing with such a different type of time period that most schools will tell you, I might have to get back to you by answering that question. I'm not sure. So it's important to get those questions and ask them, write all that down, try to keep a detailed idea of what you're trying to go into. You know, a lot of the schools, especially every school will tell you for years, they've been doing this holistic admissions process. But I will tell you that this year will probably be the one year they really, almost 95% of schools really look at this. And although there are SAT and ACT testing sites still going on, they're few and far between. And so because of that, they are focusing primarily on a few things that I would say now are number 1 and number 2. One, of course, being GPA rank. So your grading average and your rank will probably be the number one reason, of course, and has always been the number one academic thing that they look at to getting into schools. Most colleges already told them if the school has changed their grading in any way, they will not penalize you for that. They will primarily look at the early years. The second thing used to be SATs, but I would say right now the second thing is academic rigor. So, most students have had their 4-year plan laid out for them. AP courses, IB, honors, all those higher level programming. And they get to their senior year and they know they need that 4th year of math, 4th year of science. They have that laid out. However, knowing what's going on, although students have been thinking of changing that process, what courses they're taking, or they might focus, not have that focus, that determination they've had before, knowing that you really need to keep that academic rigor. That is going to make such a big deal on not only on what college you get into, but college placement of tests. Sometimes you'll say, and again, I'm not knowing what's going to happen, if the AP goes into the same criteria where you have to do it virtual again. I would say, if knowing that you're maintaining your grades and doing well above and having that critical thinking, that problem solving and doing all of that, that academic rigor will help you. But if they see you drop in any way, in anything, it's going to make a difference. Number 3, essays. It's always been something they look at. I would say they would look at it more now. I always tell students who are looking to go into college, if you find an area that you want to do any research in, I would look at the specific college that you're going into and see if they're doing research in that area as well, and apply that into your essay. So make that connection as an applicant makes a big difference. Recommendation letters, always. Extracurricular activities. So focusing primarily on 9th through 11th. But I'm going to tell you, just because something may be canceled does not mean that senior year you can't do anything. So I have spoken to a lot of students are telling me they're doing a lot of volunteering from their home. Some are going through local churches and doing food drives and things like that, but I've had students doing, creating a positive climate in their town. They're sending positive messages, leaving on people's doorsteps. They're doing many different things, making masks, helping different town events and things like that to help create a positive atmosphere. Don't let senior year, because of everything that's going on, stop you. And they will say sometimes people will say there's not much to do from my home. I can't do anything. That can't be. And being as a National Honor Society advisor, a National Technology Honor Society advisor, I would tell you that would not be an answer I would take for someone that's applying to one of my programs. So I would say to them, no, you should be creative, think outside the box, try to find things where you can do. Ask people. I'm sure your teachers, your counselors at the school will help you find different ideas. Sometimes it's something simple, like you heard a neighbor didn't have, they don't want, it's hard to get, they don't have money, they don't want to pay extra to get their food from the store, and it's expensive. They have to go pick everything up, and they don't have those means to drive there, things like that. And those are all considered volunteering community service. Those things are definitely ways that you can utilize to help this time period. But again, because I feel as though they will see, even though they're not going to penalize you, that if you do nothing, when you're someone that's so, that focuses so much on extracurricular activities 9th through 11th, if you have a gap, they're going to think that, well, you didn't really do a lot of thinking of what you could do. The Common App actually came up with this brand new question. They didn't want you to focus your essay question on COVID, so they actually created a section that's optional just to talk about COVID, talk about your experiences. And this, even though it's optional, I always say, be honest. And I don't mean be honest to the point where you tell all deep, darkest feelings, but be honest with, this was a struggle for me, being online, or this was, oh, I loved it. I love the online atmosphere. I love working with my students. But it's always good to kind of put that out there. They do like hearing, anything from you. They like to know what's going on. They like to know, it really does help them understand the student in general. It's only optional. It's about 250 max word count. So not really expecting a lot, but if you can write something, that would definitely be helpful. Just a few things for my references if you guys are interested. I'm not sure I covered all the topics you were thinking about, but I know Marina and I have been talking for a while about all the struggles that everyone's been having in general, and I know my students are having. So if you do have any questions right now, and I know I tend to talk and ramble on, so you can tell me if you do have something specific that you have questions about, whether it be about the admissions process or it be about, you know, what your expectations as a parent. You know, now that maybe a lot of you have chosen to be test optional, I had a parent ask me that today. The school has chosen to be test optional, so why should I take the SATs? You know, it's just this added stress, an added issue for me. So, so the parent asked me that. So, what I recommended, should I make my child take the SATs? I don't want to further stress them out. It's a stressful time period. And I'm going to tell them, I tell this to everyone, if you think you're going to regret it later, I would just do it. Often students tell me, like in May, oh, I should have taken it one more time, or I should have done this one more time. If you're worried about the social distancing aspect, then I would make sure to call the testing site that you're at so you can get what they're covering. But I'm also an ACT test supervisor, so I do that in my area as well. So I'll tell you right now, I recommend taking it because the fact that even though you may not it's going to be test optional, they will never penalize you for sending in a test. It will only help your scores compared to others. So in knowing that, and in knowing that there will be almost triple number of applicants, let's say for the 5-6-year medical program that you're applying to, then I would take it. I would try to take it at least twice. So if you were not able to take it in the May-June time period where you normally would have taken it, I would try to take it at least twice. If you can take 2 SATs just because of time frame and number of test sites and they're booked, try taking 1 SAT, 1 ACT, whichever one, but I would just try taking it at least once. It's no reason to postpone it or just not do it because, the anxiety about it. Actually take a little anxiety off yourself because it is test optional. So knowing that it's test optional, then you don't have to worry about the after effect. They will not be penalizing for that score, so there's no reason not to take it. I know a lot of them have actually implemented more test sites. So I think every month from September till December, almost every 2 weeks, there's a SAT or ACT. I think there's like 2 in September, 2 in October. I know there's multiple different sites. They're actually requesting more sites from different proctors and supervisors around the state. So I'm sure the same thing is happening there. But let's see, so is there any questioning, or did I cover every single topic that everyone had? I know I gave a lot of information, but I can actually give Marina my copy of my PowerPoint. So if anyone has any specific questions they just want to review with their kids or just to have an understanding of, they can do that as well. And I don't see any specific questions. No? Marina, I'm gonna unmute Marina. You can actually, if you want to text on the chat board, you can text on the chat board. You can also request to be unmuted, and I can actually do that as well. It's up to you, whichever you feel comfortable with. So if you want to put it in the chat and ask a specific question, you can do that. It just comes privately to us. You can choose to send it to me or to Marina at the Signal Learning Center. But I am here. So so there is one question. So how will schools catch up on missed material? So schools in general, I'll tell you one thing. Your school's actually starting in a couple of days. So it's going to be very soon. I know a lot of students and schools are looking at administering some diagnostics in the beginning, assisting with other students, trying to get a fair feeling for how much you know at the time you start senior year. You'll find that schools that missed the 2 months in April and May and now have to start those 2 months of schooling that they may have covered some topics, might be doing a quick review in September, in August. So you might find them saying, okay, for the first 2 weeks, we're going to review with you, 2-3 weeks. Will they maybe cover everything? Maybe not. Maybe they'll focus on a few things that they think are, priorities, and they'll move forward. Especially for those advanced AP classes, knowing that they have to try to cover so much curriculum in a time frame, and it's still adhere to the testing at the end. They have so much time to look at this. You might find a struggle in that time period trying to reach every single topic. Knowing that, I do recommend students to really, really focus on being that asking questions, ask your teachers, ask, the Single Learning Center, get the help you need. Try to do as much as you can. Don't let someone let you have that gap of time where you're not doing anything. So there is another question. Hopefully that answered that question about what do you do with the missed materials. What are some good virtual volunteer opportunities? So virtual is hard. So people think, okay, I don't know what to do when I'm at home. So you can help local businesses, help if, let's say, churches, different areas where they might need help with virtually digitalizing their website. You can reach out to the local, it might be called something different, American Legions, the Kiwanis clubs in your areas, the women's club in your areas. These are local fraternities that help support the community, give out money, scholarships. They will actually help support the schools. Actually, I would go into your school's local scholarships and see who are the companies there that are giving local things and local scholarships. Sometimes if you say to them, listen, I'm willing to help you, can I help with the website? Can I help do things from home? They'll say, yes, can you help make these calls for us, things like that. Your local fire department, EMT squad, you would be surprised how much help they need right now. Everyone would think, oh, I'd have to go inside. No, if you say, okay, right now is a time period that they send out their mailer for asking for donations, stuffing those envelopes and sending those out would be a great help for them. So they can spend more time on other things. And it's gonna be about reaching out, literally reaching out to those areas and reaching out to those people and asking those questions. So those are really the primary things. Churches, find out the EMT, first aid squad, the fire department, police squads, those type of, your borough office. So your county office is asking them what you can do to help. And again, it doesn't necessarily have to be that you go there in person, but you could say, I want to work from home. Asking those type of questions, what can I do for you in that sense? Okay, I have a question. Hopefully that helped answer your question about virtual volunteer opportunities. And keep on asking. You can always ask your teachers and your counselors at your school for more help on that. The second question I got is about what's the difference between early decision and early application? I truly believe sometimes colleges add in words just to confuse people. So you might find that a lot of students say priority application, early admission, early decision 1, early decision 2. So every school typically calls early decision one thing, where you have a binding contract with the school. For example, Harvard, where you're saying to them, I'm going to go to Harvard if you accept me. You can only have one early decision application with one school. Because let's say you apply to Harvard, MIT, Caltech, and you get accepted to all 3, you can only have early decision application with one school. And that is because that's a binding contract. You're a counselor, you as a student, and your parent signs that application. Knowing that if you cannot rescind your acceptance, once you get accepted, you have to rescind acceptances to all your other schools. So you have to be very, very, very sure that you're going to go to that school if you're doing early decision. So knowing that's such a binding legal contract, what's the reason of why you would actually do an early decision? If you are 95% sure that you really want to go to this school and you really don't have, any other school you love as much as this one school, students do early decision because it tells that school that I'm putting all my eggs into one basket. You and only you. And it tells them typically they will make it financially feasible for you to go there. The only way you can break a binding contract is if it's not financially feasible. So because it's always decision, the schools are required to give you as much money as they can. Knowing, in defines of the financial aid application, the CSS profile, and all of that stuff. But they really do. You can actually, and I always tell this to everyone, this is not a secret. Always, always go and ask for more money. Always. There is no bombs about asking for more money. And when I mean ask for more money, I would send an official letter asking for more money, saying that these are all the reasons why I need more money, and then send it to them. In addition to that, add in there all the stuff that you say, like I did, that wasn't on your original application. That in addition to getting straight A's all 9th through 11th grade, right now I'm still getting straight A's. Now I created a new volunteer opportunity. Now I'm working on the side. You include that in the letter and say, you gave me this much, and I really want to be a Harvard University student, but so-and-so school gave me this much. Put that all in the letter, attach that to the letter, and send it to the admissions and the financial aid office. Every single time I told that to a student, almost 95% of the time, they've given them more money. And there's no harm, because if they did give you 500 to 5,000, it's definitely going to help you, no matter what. Rarely do I get a school that says no. The times that they say no, it's when the student asks in like April, May. So most of those applications happen early. So early decision is that binding contract. If you hear early action or priority, those are typically not binding. So those are the ones which are early, that are not binding, that tell the school you want to go there, but you don't want a binding contract. Early decision and early action, typically deadlines align in November 1st, October 15th, November 15th, really early. So I would recommend, if you choose one school as early decision and then the rest as early action or priority, I would keep a kind of like a table for myself and write down each school and their deadlines, so you know what their deadlines are and what one way you're choosing. Common App and a lot of these applications that they utilize have it really easy. You can print that table right there. So it's important. I would tell most students it's important to figure out in your idea, just because of what's happening now, what's going on for yourself and this process. Don't let this summer time period, now it's over for you guys and you're starting school. Don't let yourself have a lag time. It's going to be stressful being online, but the time that you have, the time that you're home, do as much as a research you can as right now. And actually, most students, I tell them to start applying now. Don't wait till October. Don't procrastinate. Get them done. Get them finished. Most schools will tell you that their money pile, the imaginary money pile they keep, finishes quickly. And knowing that, because of current day time periods, I would feel they would give you more money if you do early decision, because they're needing to have more students. So keep that in mind with your application process. Try to make sure that you look at the different schools and ask those questions, ask your counselor, your teachers, try to get as much information as you can. So hopefully that answers that question between early decision, early action, or priority deadlines. Again, you can only do one early decision application. But anyone else have any specific questions regarding anything specific related to online instruction or the college admission process in general?
This is also about my brother. So this is like a situation about him.
Okay.
So he said that he wants to go to UT, but he's not in top 6%. He's in the top 16 at the 400th best school best high school in the country. So it's really competitive.
Mm-hmm.
He runs track and he's also have many extracurriculars, such as the clubs he takes. He has 2 positions in the club, and he also has 2 internships and volunteers inside the Houston Food Bank student program. For the SAT, it's like a 1560, and he doesn't know what are his chances of getting into UT.
So I'm going to tell you right now, and if you ask them, they're not going to give you an answer. I feel that more students are going to, will tell you right now, more schools will tell you that you will have a higher likelihood of getting in. Being the top 16%, and I'm sure the district size is huge. So knowing that, and you're being the top 16% with all these extracurriculars, I would say there is no reason not to apply. It cannot be a definite guarantee. I can't say a guarantee they will accept him, but there'll be a more likelihood of more acceptances, widening the gap where they accept the top, Cornell, accepts the top 5% typically of the class, and the student is the top 16%. They may look at that student more. I would say the more things they do now would make a difference during this time period. Coming up with the different things, different volunteer opportunities, different things, taking advantage of this time and being creative with it will make a difference for a college admission counselor, because seeing what someone can do in a crisis tells them the type of person they are. So and I know it's scary to think, oh my God, what am I going to do now? It's August, school starts in a week, and I have to think, but you know what, don't let the time go by. And it's great that you're asking for your brother, but it's important that he feels that way too. If you automatically think a school is out of reach, it's going to always be out of reach. But I always say, I'm always surprised. That's why I never tell a student, you can't get into a school. I never, ever. I always tell them it's definitely a good chance, good idea for you to apply. Because if I told a student that they wouldn't get in, then they never get in, because that's what they'll believe from me. I always think that you should always try, especially knowing what's going on right now, that they should apply. They should try to start that process now, early as possible. If they're doing, this school, this is their number one choice, possibly early decision. If not that, early action or priority. And taking that all into account. Their essay better be stellar. Really have people proofread it, things like that. Some colleges actually give you essay writing seminars, or they've been doing them, different schools. So try taking that into account, and taking all of this and trying to figure out more different ways to beef up that application would definitely help. Hopefully that answered your question. I had students, in my years of counseling, and I've been in counseling for so many years, I had students that always thought this was a long shot. I don't know if, depending on my pool of students, when I talk to students, it gets exciting for different areas. But I had a student when I was in one school, an urban school, and the student told me they wanted to play for the NFL. And, you tell all the students when they want to play for the NFL that it's a far reach. You're never going to know if you're going to get that goal. And you tell them that because it's one in thousands that you might be able to get into the NFL and play. This kid was a great kid, a great student, an excellent, football player. And years later, what'd he do? He got into the NFL. He was Victor Cruz. So knowing that, I never say you can't get in. So keep that in mind. So definitely take this time to work on it as much as you can. Let's see if there's any more questions. So if there's any more questions, you can always put in the chat, or you can request or unmute yourself and ask the question. I don't see anything. Nothing yet. Unless I answered everyone's. Oh, wait. Okay, one more question. Okay, here's a question. How can I take advantage academically of this pandemic? So I'm hoping that every student academically is staying at the same rigor that they were freshman, sophomore, and junior year. So that means, one, keeping with the class schedule that you were originally going to have, not changing any minds, what classes. If the school somehow changed your schedule because of issues within the school and academic and elective, things like that, that's different. But if there's something that you can do to add academic rigor and academically to your schedule, I would do that. Knowing that, I would make sure whatever you were doing 9th through 11th grade, you don't stop that. Keep that motivation as a student, keep on studying. Don't stop asking questions. keep the idea that you are still a student, that is still at the level that you were before. There's always going to be a domino effect, where if students don't have that idea, where they're just apathetic to their education, they procrastinate and they don't ask those questions, and they lose that motivation, they'll lose that motivation in college as well. And there will just be a cascade effect into their adult life, in their working life, and you don't want that to happen. Again, as I say before, I believe that those students in this time period, if you keep that level, if you ask those questions, you will the reason why we continue to solve the problems that we're having now. And that should be, a reason why you want to keep moving forward. The research that needs to happen happens with this class, happens with your ideas. It's, typically doesn't happen where, and I'm not saying bad, but an adult, figures everything out. Usually it's a student, a learner, someone that's open to the ideas of different things. So it's your generation that needs to be open to the thinking and the problem solving. So don't stop, keep going, keep moving forward, ask those questions as much as you can, and try to get a better idea or feel for what you want to do in the future. Maybe you might change your mind based upon what's going on right now. Okay. Any other questions? I don't see anything in the chat box. Usually I get a lot more questions when I do these webinars. I'm sure a lot of parents, and I tell this to a lot of parents in my seminars, that often you'll see these kids, these parents have these little kids all dressed up in these onesies that says Harvard University, a child that's going to MIT grad at such a young age. And when they grow up, and sometimes we lose our own motivation to motivate our child, to remember that you're going to be that Harvard grad, MIT grad. We sometimes think it may be out of reach for our own child. So don't stop thinking that way. Keep that motivation as a parent too. It's important. I have 3 children of my own. I try to do the same thing. It's difficult, especially with everything blocking my view with today's day, things that are going on. So if there's any questions that parents may have, you can always ask me privately, or Marina, or send it through Marina. I don't work for 1 more month in New Jersey, so I know you guys are going back to school, but you can always ask me questions before school starts. So if there's anything specifically related to the current conversations we've been having now, I don't see anything. I think that's it, Marina. Okay. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Bina. Really appreciate
Welcome.
you sharing all your insight and your experience with us. And if the students and the parents do have questions, if you don't mind, I will take you up and forwarding it to you.
Always.
Okay, great. Thank you. So we can call it a day. And everyone, all of the students that are logged on here, stay fresh, stay safe, and get yourself going and ready for the next academic year.